So now we come to chapter 12, Nitya-dharma and Sadhana. This sadhana is going to apply to Brajanath, who's the hero, who's going to be described now, the main character. And we'll read it and we'll unfold as we move along. So Sri Navadvip Mandal is supreme among all holy places of the world. It's very interesting because Bhaktivinoda Thakur begins many chapters with the same context of bringing us in to where we are. He starts on the first chapter, Burmandal, etc., comes right down and lands us in Godrum Dweep. And there's other chapters also where he brings us in to the actual location where we are. It's so brilliant, it's ingenious the way he does it. Sri Navadvip Mandal is supreme among all holy places of the world. Like Vrindavan, it covers an area of 32 square miles and is shaped like an 8-petaled lotus flower. It is Vrindavan. It's Gupta Vrindavan. It's the same as Vrindavan. Here is Radhakund. Here is the Jamuna. In the Ganga down here, there are, at the Panchaveni, there are 5, 6 rivers. Actually, my Gurudev is saying that there's so many rivers coming in here, not just Saraswati, Narmada, and all these different rivers coming here. So many different rivers are there. So certainly Jamuna Devi is there on the western bank. We're on the eastern bank, on Godrum side. This is Ganga. The center of that lotus is Sri Antadvip, the core of which is Sri Mayapur. To the north of Sri Mayapur is Sri Simantadvip, where a temple of Sri Simantini Devi is situated. To the north of this temple is the village of Bilva Pushkarini, and to the south lies Brahmana Pushkarini. That area, which is located in the northern section of Sri Navadvip, is commonly referred to as Simulya. So that's the beautiful pastime when Durga Ma, she begs Lord Shiva's wife, Gauri, for Mahaprabhu's mercy. She sees her husband so intoxicated with Gora Ras, Gora Prem. And Mahaprabhu benedicts her with a darshan, and she takes the dust from Mahaprabhu's feet and she puts it in the part of her hair. This is called the Sindhu. You see, all married ladies have the Sindhu. So from this word Sindhu, it's come Simulya. This is why it's called Simulya. And actually, traditionally in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, it stretched right around to include Nrsimhapali. Nrsimhapali seems today to be included within the island of Godrum, but with the changing direction of the Ganga, previously in Bhaktivinoda Thakur's time, even 400 years ago, Nrsimhapali was actually a part of Sumulya. If you look at an old map, you'll see it there, not Godrum. But today because it's geographically located closer to the other places of Godrum. At the time of Mahaprabhu, Sumulya was the residence of many learned Pandits. The father of Sachidev, Sri Nilambar Chakravarti Mahashai, had also lived in this village. Now, not far from where Nilambara Chakravarti's house still stood, lived a Vedic Brahmana named Brajanath Bhattacharya. So that place of Nilambara Chakravarti is still there. We can go today. It's very nice, well-kept, holy place that we can visit, and they'll always be welcome to visitors coming and seeing. Brajanath had been brilliant from his childhood. He had studied in a Sanskrit school of Bilba Pushkarini, and he had become a superior scholar in the science of logic, Nyaya Shastra. That his ingenious and innovative arguments embarrassed and intimidated all the renowned scholars of Bilva Pushkarini. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is introducing us to a personality who's very, very bright and intelligent, because this person is going to ask the highest types of questions and conceptions to be cleared. And he's also having great familiarity with the Nyaya Shastra, which means that those subjects of debate, etc. This is basically what they are involved in, this Mimamsa Tattva Siddhanta, which they argue and debate about. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur wants to take us to the topmost conception, so he has to have a topmost personality to demonstrate that idea. It's like Sannyasi Thakur when he comes in the first chapter. He's a very educated Brahmagyani. He knows so much Shastra, etc. Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses him as an example of someone who can become influenced towards Krishna consciousness, even though they're in such a high scholastic state of mind. So Brajanath is the same. He's such a scholar, but even this scholar is going to be caught by the net of Mahaprabhu. And this whole chapter deals with that. He had studied in the Sanskrit school in Bilva Pushkarini and had become such a superior scholar in the science of logic, Nyaya Shastra, that his ingenious and innovative arguments embarrassed and intimidated all the renowned scholars of Bilva Pushkarini. Brahmana Pushkarini, Mayapur, Godrum, Madhyadweep, Amargat, Samudragar, Kulia, Purvastali, and other places. So this was his area of prowess. Wherever there was a gathering of pundits, Brajanath Nyaya Panchadanya would set the assembly ablaze with a barrage of unprecedented arguments. Among these pundits was a cruel-hearted logician named Nyayika Chudamani. How do you say that, Gokul? Nyayika Chudamani, who was deeply mortified by the wounds he had received from the sharp blows of Brajanath's logic. This logician resolved to kill Nyaya Panchajanya, using the occult knowledge described in the Tantra Shastra, by which one can invoke another's death through mystical incantations. To this end, he moved into the crematorium ground in Rudradvip and began to utter death mantras day and night. Actually, this tantric science is very prominent here in Navadvip. You find even many of the Bengali devotees have had some experience with that tantra, those tantric mantras. If you cross over now today around the area of Rudradvip today, which is where he's been described, there are many tantrics living there now. This tantric science is a very potent science and has the capacity to actually distort the consciousness of anybody. It has great power in the psychic world. We were introduced to it by Digambar in the 9th chapter. When he comes to visit, he's proclaiming the prowess of Tantric Shastra, which is under the guidance of Durgama, the great mother. So she has potency, of course. You see Kali Maharaj, or Kali Devi, Kali Ma, with her tongue out. Have you seen that, Kali? Why has she got her tongue out like that? Because she's standing on her husband. Kali Ma was in great fit of rage and anger, and no one could stop her anger. So Shivji, her husband, decided to lie down in her track. She was walking in a completely stormy, angry mentality. No one could check her anger. Sparks were flying out of her body. And then Shivji, he lies down in front of her. And then Kali Ma, she places her foot on her husband's chest, and she suddenly realizes what she's standing on. She goes, like that. That's why she has her tongue out. That's why she looks like that, because she's suddenly stopped in her tracks by her divine husband. And you'll see many, and Kali Ma will support the tantric invocations, etc. We'll see. It was Amavasya, the night of the new moon, and dense darkness pervaded all the 4 directions. At midnight, Nyayika Chudamani sat in the middle of the cremation ground, and called out to his worshipable deity, "O Mother, you are the only worshipable deity in this Kali Yuga." This is Kali Ma he's calling. "I have heard that you become pleased simply by the recitation of a few mantras, and that you easily bestow benedictions upon your worshippers. O goddess with a terrifying face, this servant of yours has undergone tremendous hardship in reciting your mantras for many days. Please be merciful upon me just once. O Mother, although I am plagued with many faults, you are still my mother. Please excuse all my faults and appear before me today." So this is a manifestation of this Naika Chudamani, his pratishta, his supreme fear of Brajanath. Brajanath has completely annihilated his various arguments. He's embarrassed him because he's shown his scholastic prowess in an assembly, and he's embarrassed this person, Naika Chudamani. And he so much wants to such a degree, we can understand it emotionally, to such a degree he wants to kill him. He thinks this is going to be the answer. So it's a very beautiful pastime that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has arranged to tell here. In this way, repeatedly calling out with cries of distress, Naya Chudamani offered oblations in the fire while uttering a mantra in the name of Brajanath Nyaya Panchajanya. How astonishing was the power of that mantra! The sky immediately became overcast with a mass of dense, dark clouds. A fierce wind began to blow, and deafening peals of thunder roared. Hideous ghosts and evil spirits could be seen in the intermittent flashes of lightning. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is showing us the reality of this. This is not just some imagined science. It's a reality. It's a material science, nevertheless, but it's still a material reality. With the help of the sacrificial wine, Chudamani summoned all his energy and called out, "O mother, please do not delay another moment." Just then, an oracle from the heavens replied, "Do not worry. Brajanath Nyaya Panchajanya will not discuss the Nyaya Shastra for long. Within a few days, he will give up debating and remain silent. He will no longer be your rival. Be peaceful and return home." Very beautiful, huh? Amazing. Pasta. I mean, Bhakti, it's almost we can appreciate its brilliance is not of an earthly level the way this book is constructed. It's channeled into the heart of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It's an eternal granta. So it's manifesting this way. When the Pandit heard this oracle, he became satisfied. He repeatedly offered pranam to Mahadev, the chief of the Devas, and the author of the Tantra. Yes, this Tantra is manifesting from Mahadev. And then returned to his own home. Brajanath Nyaya Panchanya. How do you say that? Go. Panchanana. Nyaya Panchanana had become a Digvijay Pandit, one who has conquered the four directions through scholarship. Dig means directions, Vijay means victory. Victory in all directions, Pandit. At the age of 21, day and night he studied the books of the famous logician, Sri Gangesh Upadhyaya. Huh? Gangesh Upadhyaya, who had initiated a new system of logic known as Navya Nyaya. Brajanath had found many faults in Kanabhata Siromani's Didita, which was celebrated commentary of Gangopadhyay's Tantra Chintamani, and he'd begun to write his own commentary. Although he never thought of material enjoyment, the word Paramartha, spiritual reality, never so much as entered his ears. So he was very renounced in his lifestyle, but he'd never contemplated what is the ultimate reality, what is the supreme spiritual. He was so engrossed in his own extraordinary prowess in the world of Nyaya and defeating so many people. He had all the accomplishments to become a brilliant devotee, but yet he was involved, just like we see Mahaprabhu in his life as Nimai Pandit, when Nimai Pandit was acting as the scholar. And of course, on all the Vaishnavas, they all wanted him to become a Vaishnava. But Nimai Pandit was challenging them all with in different debates and so on, and defeating them. Where are we? Never so much as his single focus in life was to initiate logical debates using the concepts and terminology of Nyaya, such as avacheda, the property of an object by which it is distinguished from everything else. Vyavachedata, exclusion of one object from another. Gata, a clay pot, and pata, a piece of cloth. They just use these objects to establish different conceptions. While sleeping, dreaming, eating, or moving about, his heart was filled with thoughts about the nature of objects, the nature of time, and the peculiarity of aqueous and terrestrial properties. What's aqueous mean? Terrestrial or earthly properties? Water properties. One evening, Brajanath was sitting on the bank of the Ganga, contemplating the 16 categories propounded by Gautam in his system of logic, when a new student of the Nyaya Shastra approached him. Nyaya Panchanani Mahashai, said the student, you have heard Nimai Pandit's logical refutation of the atomic theory? Oh, have you heard Nimai Pandit's logical refutation of the atomic theory of creation? He's asking. Nyaya Panchananya roared like a lion. Who is Nimai Pandit? Are you speaking about the son of Jagannath Mishra? Tell me about his logical arguments. He's found something to challenge. That's what he's living for. The student said, oh, a great person named Nimai Pandit lived in Navadvip just a short time ago. He composed many innovative logical arguments related to the Nyaya Shastra and thus embarrassed Kanabhata Shiromani. During his time, there was no scholar equal to him in mastery of the Nyaya Shastra. Yet even though he was so adept at the Nyaya Shastra, he considered it quite insignificant. Indeed, he regarded not only the Nyaya Shastra, but the entire material world as trifling. Trifling means very small, useless. He therefore adopted the life of a wandering mendicant in the renounced order and traveled from place to place, propagating the chanting of Harinam. Present-day Vaishnavas accept him as Purna Brahm, that means the full Supreme Brahm, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and they worship him with Sri Gora Hari Mantra. Sri Gora Hari Mantra. Nyaya Panchanana Mahashai, you must look into his dialectical arguments at least once. Excuse me. After hearing such praise of Nimai Pandit's logical reasoning, Brajanath Nyaya Panchananya became quite curious to hear his arguments. With difficulty, he was able to collect a few of those arguments from various sources. Human nature is such that when one develops faith in a particular subject, he will naturally feel regard for the teachers of that subject. Moreover, for various reasons, common people do not easily develop faith in exalted personalities who are still living, whereas they tend to develop great faith in the activities of Mahajans who have passed away. It's very true, huh? We don't have so much faith in that person who's walking around, but then when they leave their bodies, we proclaim them to be great saints and great preceptors, etc. This is often the case. Nyaya Panchananya developed unshakable faith in Nimai Pandit by studying his logical thesis. Brajanath would say, O Nimai Pandit, if I had been born during your time, there is no telling how much I could have learned from you. O Nimai Pandit, kindly enter my heart just once. You are truly Purna Brahm, for otherwise how could such extraordinary logical arguments have come from your mind? You are undoubtedly Gaura Hari, for you have destroyed the darkness of ignorance by creating such remarkable arguments. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur is mapping the faith that's going to be increasing in the heart of Brajanath. And it starts with his respect for his logical, rational arguments. It's coming in from that direction. This is like Jignasu, these four types of people who come to Krishna. This person who is seeking knowledge. Brajanath is that person who's seeking knowledge, and he's inquiring. O O Nimai Pandit, O Gora Hari, please be merciful to me. When will I be able to create logical arguments like yours? If you are merciful unto me, there is no telling how great a scholar of the Nyaya Shastra I may become. So he's accepting him practically as his guru. Even though it's in the Nyaya Shastra realm, he hasn't come out of that realm yet because he hasn't met someone who is already out of that place. He hasn't met Raghunath Das. He's going to be his guru, who's going to pull him away from that place. He hasn't got that transcendental connection yet. So everything is in the material realm. Brajanath thought to himself, it seems to me that those who worship Gaurahari must also be attracted to Nimai Pandit's scholarship in Nyaya, just as I am. I should go to them and see whether they have any books that he has composed on Nyaya. Thinking like this, Brajanath developed a desire to associate with the devotees of Gauranga. He constantly uttered the pure names of Bhagavan, such as Nimai Pandit and Gaurahari, and by desiring to associate with the devotees of Gaura, Brajanath earned tremendous sukriti. This is how we get this sukriti, this hunger, this desire to catch the precepts of the Mahajans, especially, of course, Mahaprabhu that we're talking about here. One day, while Brajanath was taking a meal with his paternal grandmother, he asked, Grandmother, did you ever see Gaurahari? Upon hearing the name of Sri Gauranga, Brajanath's grandmother nostalgically remembered her childhood and said, Aha, what an enchanting form he had. Alas, will I ever behold his beautiful, sweet form again? Can anyone who has seen that captivating form ever engage her mind in domestic affairs again? When he performed Harinam Kirtan, absorbed in ecstatic trance, the birds, beasts, trees, and creepers of Navadvip would completely lose consciousness of the external world due to the intoxication of prem. Even now, when I contemplate these thoughts, an incessant flow of tears streams uncontrollably from my eyes and soak my breast. So we get a picture into Mahaprabhu's pastimes, how when he would have his intoxicating kirtan ras, the birds, the trees, all the properties around, all the living entities around would become so stunned and intoxicated with this prem that he was spreading. This was his potency. He is that prem purushottam, that distributor of prem, and we see it even here. Brajanath inquired further, do you recall any pastimes that he performed? Grandmother replied, I certainly do, my son. When Sri Gauranga would visit the house of his maternal uncle with Mother Sachi, the elderly ladies of our house fed him shak, spinach, and rice. He would praise the shak very highly and eat it with great prem. At that precise moment, Brajanath's own mother placed some shak on his plate. Seeing it and appreciating the serendipity of the moment, Brajanath became overjoyed. This is like his mind is open to this achintya mood that we've described earlier. He's looking for new horizons. Everything is like developing very quickly. So he's filled with this mood of achintya bhav, expectation of something absolutely wonderful. And he's seeing this shak in this way, just being put on his plate when his grandmother is talking about Mahaprabhu, how he would love this shak. And it's like an udipan, like an impetus for his faith. So he's overjoyed, this shraddha deepening this mood. At that precise moment, Brajanath's own mother placed some shak on his plate. Seeing it and appreciating the serendipity of the moment, Brajanath became overjoyed. This is the beloved shak of the logician Nimai Pandit, he said, and ate it with the utmost reverence. Very beautiful. He's even taking the shak now, the spinach, with great reverence in honor of Mahaprabhu. Although Brajanath was completely lacking in transcendental knowledge of absolute reality, he became extremely attracted as Nimai Pandit's brilliant scholarship, to Nimai Pandit's brilliant scholarship. Indeed, the intensity of his attraction could not be estimated. Even the name of Nimai was a delight to his ears. When mendicants came to beg alms, uttering Jai Sachinandan, he received them warmly and fed them. He would sometimes go to Mayapur, where he would hear the Babajis chanting the names of Gauranga. He would ask them many questions about Gauranga's triumphant activities in the field of scholarship and learning. Wonderful progress that he's going through. After a few months of these activities, Brajanath was no longer his former self. Previously, Nimai's name had pleased him only in connection with his scholarship in Nyaya, but now Nimai pleased him in all respects. Brajanath lost all interest in studying and teaching Nyaya, and no longer had any taste for dry arguments or debate. Nimai, the logician, no longer had any standing in the kingdom of his heart. Nimai, the logician, no longer had any standing in the kingdom of his heart, for Nimai, the devotee, had usurped all authority. How beautiful! How beautiful! This is the prediction of Nayika Chudamani coming true. In the very beginning, we had he's going to be silenced. Now he's been silenced. Brajanath's heart would begin to dance when he heard the sound of mridanga and kartals. He would offer pranam within his mind whenever he saw pure devotees. He displayed great devotion towards Sri Navadvip, respecting it as the birthplace of Sri Gaurangadev. When rival pundits saw that Nyaya Panchadanya had become soft-hearted, they were very pleased at his condition. Now they could openly step out of their houses without fear. Nayika Pandit thought that his worshipable deity had rendered Brajanath inactive, and there was no longer any need to be afraid. So, like Mother Kali, for example, in this instance, she inspires great faith within Chudamani, because this has actually come to pass. This is how faith is engendered in the hearts of the different personalities, because something will happen, and their faith will be increased. One day, while Brajanath was sitting in a secluded place on the bank of the Bhagirati, he thought to himself, if such a profound scholar of the Nyaya Shastra as Nimai could renounce logic and adopt the path of bhakti, what fault would there be if I should do the same? While I was obsessed with Nyaya, I could not apply myself to the cultivation of bhakti, nor could I bear to hear the name of Nimai. In those days I was so immersed in the Nyaya Shastra that I could not even find time to eat, drink, or sleep. Now I see things in quite the opposite way. I no longer contemplate the topics of Nyaya Shastra. Instead, I always remember the name of Gauranga. Still, even though the ecstatic devotional dancing of the Vaishnavas captivates my mind, I am the son of a Vedic Brahmana. I was born in a prestigious family, and I am highly respected in society. Very beautiful. Bhakti-Vinod Thakur is showing us. It's exactly the same with Sannyasi Thakur. Remember when he saw that Vaishnava dancing? He describes that a great, tremendous lift in Sannyasi Thakur's consciousness happened when he saw the Vaishnava dancing. But because of his prestige and feeling about his position as a sannyasi, he couldn't approach that Vaishnava. He was restricted by the material abhiman. His material identity held him back. So this is a lesson for all of us. We have to purify even our material identities on all levels to ultimately approach the Supreme and to understand our real identity, Jivera Sarup Hoy Krishnera Nitya-das, that I am a spirit soul. I'm not this person, this body, etc., with these material senses, this material body. I have to actually go beyond that place. And at some point, we have to give up all of these material conceptions if we want this truth to really begin to sprout and grow in the heart. Where are we up to? In those days, yes. Where are we? Hang on a second. I now see things in the opposite way. I always remember the name of Gauranga. Oh yes, sorry, yes, got it. Although I truly believe that the behavior and conduct of the Vaishnavas is excellent, it is inappropriate for me to adopt their ways outwardly. There are many Vaishnavas in Sri Mayapur at Kolabangadanga, where Chankazi broke the Mridanga. This is in Srivasangam. This is just up the road here, near Mayapur, yeah. Broke and stopped the Sankirtan, and at Vairagi Danga, the place of Vaishnava asceticism. I feel happy and purified at heart when I see the radiance of their faces. But amongst all those devotees, it is Sri Raghunath Das Babaji Mahashai who completely captivates my mind. When I see him, my heart fills with shraddha. I would like to be by his side continuously and learn the Bhakti Shastras from him. It is said in the Vedas,
आत्मा वा अरे द्रष्टव्यः श्रोत्रव्यः मान्तव्यो निदिदस्तव्यः.
Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. One should see, hear about, think of, and meditate on the supreme absolute truth. In this mantra, the word mantavya means to be thought of, to be considered or examined, to be admitted or assumed, to be approved or sanctioned, or to be called into question. Although this word suggests that one should acquire Brahmagyan by studying the Nyaya Shastras, the word Shrotavya, to be heard or learned from a teacher, implies the necessity for something greater. So far, I have spent much of my life in useless arguments and debate. Now, without wasting any more time, I long to dedicate myself to the feet of Sri Gaurahari. It will therefore be most beneficial for me to go after sunset and take darshan of Sri Raghunath Das Babaji Mahashai. So we'll stop there for today. So we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from Brajanath Panchanaya being a Nyaya Shastra, Nyaya Pandit of great renown, to him coming completely surrendered and wanting to take the mercy of the Vaishnavas now. So just in a short space of time, all this transition of his consciousness has happened simply by the name Nimai Pandit and Gauranga. By this name alone, it's inspired and purified his heart. So very wonderful to appreciate. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Isn't it amazing how Bhaktivinoda Thakur brings everything into the conception of Mahaprabhu's truths and topics? Everything is only focused on there. It's bringing us into that highest, because ultimately he's going to bring us into this understanding of what is the nature of Vrindavan, what is the nature of Parakya Bhav. All of this, we are going in this direction. This is the direction he's taking us. He's leading us there. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai. So now we come to our subject matter. I'm still thinking completely of Varahadev. It's his day today. It's his atmosphere. So we can pray to Varahadev, all of us, that he will give us insight into the next part of this chapter today. Because now, Brajanath, we've gone through the whole process where Brajanath, he was a Nyaya Shastric scholar. And now he was searching for Nimai Pandit's scholastic treatise on Nyaya. And then he became attracted to Nimai Pandit himself. And then he began to hear more and more. And then he kept saying the name, Nimai Pandit, Nimai Pandit. Now finally he's come to the devotees at Srivas Angam, just across the river here by Mayapur. And he's come there and he's sitting there, he's watching the Sandhya Arti. And then after the Arti, the beautiful Arti, then Raghunath Das Babaji has come to sit beside him. And they've begun to engage in conversation. And this is when the heart of this chapter really begins, where we concluded yesterday. So I'm going from halfway down page 265. Brajanath replied, I am one who is thirsting for the truth, and I long to receive some instruction from you. A Vaishnav seated nearby recognized Brajanath and said, his name is Brajanath Nyaya Panchajanya. There is no scholar of Nyaya equal to him in all of Navadvip, but now he has developed some faith in Sachinandan. Hearing of Brajanath's vast erudition, the elderly Babaji said courteously, my dear son, you are a great scholar, and I am a foolish and wretched soul. This is practically like I described yesterday. almost a mirror conversation of what we heard in the first chapter when Sannyasi Thakur comes to Prem Das Babaji. It's the same dynamic of the humility of the Babaji and honoring that Brahmagyan sannyasi in the first chapter. And here he's honoring this Jnani who's come to him, Brajanath, basically. So we should take all of these lessons from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He's always interweaving it with the etiquette of how Vaishnavas should behave in their lives. You are a resident of the holy Dham of our Sachinandan, and we are therefore objects of your mercy. How can we interact? How can we instruct you? Kindly share with us some of the purifying narrations of your Gauranga and pacify our burning hearts. As Babaji Maharaj and Brajanath conversed in this way, the other Vaishnavas gradually arose and dispersed to resume their respective services. Brajanath said to Babaji Mahashai, I was born in a Brahmin family, and as a result, I am very proud of my learning. So that is amazing. That is amazing that Brajanath has the sensitivity. I would conclude that because he's in the presence of such a powerful, humble soul, that humility has arisen in his heart. Previously, he wasn't humble like this, but now his first lesson, he's beginning to, he's there and he's witnessing the internal potency of Raghunath Das Babaji just in his presence. So that's inspiring a humility within him. When he sees the greatness of this personality, he realizes the insignificance of his own scholastic abilities, etc. I was born in a Brahmin family, and as a result, I am very proud of my learning. Because of my egoism of high birth and knowledge, I think this earth is within the grip of my hand. I think this is amazing that Brajanath is actually saying this to Raghunath Das Babaji straight away. He's just opening his heart completely, telling him what a proud fool he is. He thinks the whole world is in the grip of his hand. I have no idea how this is actually exactly the same as Sanatan Goswami. We see in Sanatan Shiksha, everyone has been glorifying Sanatan Goswami. He was the prime minister of the Nawab of, Hussein Shah, the Nawab of Bengal. That means the prime minister. He was completely in charge of Bengal. He was so astute, Sanatan Goswami, and he would hold programs in Bhagavatam at his home. And everyone would think he was a great scholar, and he is a great scholar. He knows 5 or 6 languages, etc. And they would all call him a great scholar. Madan, you want to sit in the chair? Would you be more comfortable? You look uncomfortable there, jumping around. And what's the first thing he says to Mahaprabhu in Mahaprabhu's presence? Oh, I am, people call me a scholar, but I know that I'm actually foolish. I want to know who I am. Kiami. This was the first question he asks Mahaprabhu. It's very similar to this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is linking completely with all the different shastras, and he's mirroring these types of examples. So this is like when Sanatan Goswami comes in front of Mahaprabhu. I have no idea how to honor sadhus and great persons. He's saying that to begin with. I cannot say by what good fortune I have awakened faith in your character and behavior. That's Achintya again. Somehow by unknown mercy, he's awakened great faith in Raghunath Das's character. I wish to ask you a few questions. Please answer them, understanding that I have not come to you with any ulterior motive. He hasn't come to debate or defeat. He genuinely, in his heart, has longing questions as a result of his various study. He's only 21 years old, remember. He's a young boy, but he's smart. And he's a resident of the Holy Dham. Brajanath then asked Babaji Mahashai fervently, kindly instruct me, what is the jiva's ultimate goal of life, sadhya, and what is the means, sadhan? So these two words, sadhya and sadhan. Sad means perfect. He is a sadhak, a perfect practitioner, and he wants to practice the perfect method. That's the sadhan. and he wants to come under Sadguru, that's the perfect instructor, and he wants to know what is the ultimate perfect goal, the Sadhya. So we have these four terminologies we can consider. You have the Sadguru, the Sadak, the Sadhan, and the Sadhya. Okay? While I was studying the Nyaya Shastra, I concluded that the jiva is essentially separate from Ishvara.
Eternal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Stay on it. I concluded that the jiva is eternally separate from Ishvara. Yes, eternally. And that the mercy of Ishvara is the only cause of the jiva's obtaining mukti. I've understood that the particular method by which the mercy of Ishvara may be obtained is called sadhan. He knows Ishvara is there, and he knows that he wants to access Ishvara. This means he has faith from his sanskar. This has a lot to do with sanskar, because we see when Brajanath first begins to chant Harinam, he chants Shuddhanam. He chants 50 rounds of Shuddhanam straight away because of his purified birth in this birth. What to speak of previous births that have accumulated in this birth. The result that is achieved through sadhan is called sadhya. That's the goal. I have probed the Nyaya Shastra many times with the inquiry as to what are sadhya and sadhan. However, the Nyaya Shastra remains completely silent on this point. It has not supplied me with the answer. Why? Because the Nyaya Shastra is not about bhakti. The Nyaya Shastra is about someone's prowess in debate. It's all about your reputation in this world. It's not about connecting with transcendence. And the most it can do is indicate moksha. But it says nothing about the result of moksha or after moksha. Doesn't even know there's a result. There's something after moksha. However, the Nyaya Shastra remains completely silent on this point. It has not supplied me with the answer. Please tell me your conclusions regarding sadhya and sadhan. Sri Raghunath Das Babaji was a disciple of Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. So that's our connection here. We're connecting to Raghunath Das Goswami. And he was not only an erudite scholar, but also a self-realized saint. He had lived for a long time at Radhakund under the shelter of Das Goswami's lotus feet, and every afternoon he had heard from him the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Dev. Raghunath Das Babaji would regularly discuss philosophical truths with Krishnadas Kaviraj Mahashai, and whenever some doubt arose, they resolved it by inquiring from Sri Das Goswami. After both Raghunath Das Goswami and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami left this world, Sri Raghunath Das Babaji came to Sri Mayapur and became the principal Pandit Babaji in the Sri Gauda Mandal. So we see his history here. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving us the clear lineage. Where have we come from? Where we go? Just like he gave us the lineage of Brajanath as a Brahmin, his Sanskrit. Our past is very important because our past makes up with who we are now. Your previous history, where you've come from, makes up who you are now. What abilities you have now to be receptive to hear these transcendental truths. If you've never been exposed to these transcendental truths before, your progress will be quite slow. If you've been exposed to these truths in a previous birth, it will be very, very swift because you've already been down this trail. Raghunath came to Sri Mayapur and became the principal Pandit Babaji in Sri Gauda Mandal. He and Premdas Paramahamsa Babaji Mahashai of Sri Godram often discuss topics of Sri Hari absorbed in Prem. Yes, these beautiful personalities would discuss these topics together. Babaji, Nyaya Panchajana Mahashai. Anyone who studies the Nyaya Shastra and then inquires about sadhya and sadhan is certainly blessed in this world, because the chief aim of the Nyaya Shastra is to compile axiomatic truths through logical analysis. It is a waste of time to study the Nyaya Shastra just to learn how to engage in dry argument and debate. If one does so, his study of logic has produced an illogical result. His labor is futile, and he has spent his life in vain. So he's congratulating Brajanath because Brajanath hasn't gone that route. Brajanath has come to inquire humbly to the senior Vaishnavas about the truth in life, about what is beyond moksha. Sadhya means the truth, tattva, that is attained by undertaking a specific practice. The practice is called sadhana, and it is the means that one adopts to attain the sadhya. Those who are bound by maya view different objects as the ultimate goal of life according to their individual tendencies and qualifications. In reality, however, there is only one supreme goal. That means for all jivas, there is only one ultimate goal, and that's again to connect with the supreme person. That's the ultimate goal, is bhakti, and that can be done through worship. But everyone is following some path according to their tendencies. If you want a lot of wealth, you'll practice karma kand. You'll practice working very hard. You'll practice that road. That will be your sadhana. If you want knowledge, you will practice studying the Shastra. But if that practice is not ultimately with the hope of achieving a connection with bhakti, then the whole process is completely useless. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has already discussed this ladder, coming from karma yoga to jnana yoga to bhakti. If we try and take one of these practices out separately from bhakti, then it just becomes a disturbance in society. If you just try and be a kami without focusing on devotion, then you've got nothing. You've absolutely got nothing. And if you try and be a jnani and you're not focusing on bhakti, you're left with just dry, impersonal knowledge. So the jewel of bhakti must always be there for success. Otherwise, it's not. You understand? There must be devotion because we are very small. And that's what we forget. Because with our various accomplishments or imagined accomplishments in this world, we start to inflate our perception of ourselves and think that we become like God. And we have that tiny little seed inside of us that can just run with that conception until we meet somebody who can smash us. That's usually the pure devotee. Or purify the heart, we can say. There are three goals that one may try to attain, and different individuals would choose one or the other according to their tendency and adhikar, eligibility. These three goals are bhukti, material enjoyment, mukti, liberation, and bhakti, devotional service. We say this verse sometimes, bhukti, mukti, spriha yavat, hridi vitartante, that these two witches, Pishchachi, of mukti and bhukti are dancing in the heart and obstructing our path of bhakti. Bhukti, mukti, spriha yavat, Pishchachi, hridi vartate is the verse. In the heart, these two witches of bhukti and mukti will obstruct us in the path of bhakti if we want this material enjoyment or we want liberation. These are obstacles in our path. Those who are ensnared in worldly activities and who are distracted by desires for material pleasure. I hope no one's disturbed by that.
You shut the window.
I shut.
I thought you opened it.
No, I shut it when he started. But it's very nice kirtan, nevertheless. And I'm managing to focus myself. I'm presuming that the microphone is going direct into the listening, so you won't be hearing so much of it. But we have accompaniment today because it's Varahadev's appearance day. Those who are ensnared in worldly activities and who are distracted by desires for material pleasure take bhukti as their goal. The Shastras are compared to a cow that fulfills all desires, Karmandenu. For a human being can obtain whatever object he desires from them. It's like when you chant Hare Krishna even, you can fulfill all desires, in fact. You can fulfill your material aspirations as well as your spiritual aspirations. This is why it's very important to be educated. Chanting Hare Krishna is like filling up the tank in the vehicle with petrol, gas. But then where are you going to drive it once it's full? You can drive it into Karma Kand, you can drive it into Gyan Kand, you can drive it into Bhakti, according to your association and education. You have to see this clearly. You do become satisfied with chanting Hare Krishna, but where are you going to take it to? What's the conclusion? What's the objective? There has to be these three, I said yesterday. There's sadhan bhakti, bhav bhakti, and prema bhakti. We have to know very, very... Okay. Hello, we come up again. Okay, we'll see how we go. Sorry about that. It was an intermission there. Yes, bhukti, mukti, bhakti. These three. And everyone is implicated in one of these three. Everybody. Everybody either wants material enjoyment, or they want liberation, or they want bhakti. Everybody. Everybody. The Shastras are compared to a cow that fulfills all desires, Kamadenu. For a human being can obtain whatever object he desires from them. The Shastras dealing with Kamakand have explained that material enjoyment is the sadhya goal. That's the goal. You want pleasure, so you work very hard, you make a lot of money, then you imagine you're having some material pleasure. And those who are eligible to engage in fruitive action, and these Shastras delineate all varieties of material pleasure that one could possibly strive to attain in this world. Having accepted material bodies in this world, the jivas are particularly fond of sensual enjoyment. This means sex life, ultimately. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada said that the demons are very fond of sex life. And we see the influence of the demons, particularly in the Western world. Every single commercial and advertisement is all, powered by some half-naked woman. So this is the god, this sensual enjoyment, this pleasure. And the height of sensual pleasure is between the sexes. Having accepted material bodies in this world, the jivas are particularly fond of sensual enjoyment. The material world is an abode to facilitate enjoyment through the mind and senses, and cultivating the desire for liberation. These four activities are the true sadhan. This is the sadhan for those who want to achieve sensual pleasure. We understand how important it is to control the mind. The mind has these windows open through the senses to the objects of the senses. And the mind, if it's not controlled, will jump through those windows trying to enjoy the objects, the material objects of the senses. But if the mind is controlled, it can become reflective and connect with our inner self, and then connect ultimately with the supersoul, the superself, and be directed towards devotion towards Krishna. So we have to Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pastar Vegam. This first injunction from Rupa Goswami to control the mind. It's so important to wake this up and realize that without the control of the mind, and then the senses are just like wild animals. They'll do anything. You can't trust the mind. It has to be controlled. It's like a wild child. If you just let it do anything it wants because you feel like it, which is a common philosophy, well, I feel like this. I'm following my feelings, Prabhu. I'm doing what my Gurudev used to say, and he says in Vilap Kusumanjali, he says it feels like my mind and heart is on one side and Guru and Krishna are on the other side. It's not the same. We call the mind and the heart what we can enjoy through the senses. That's not necessarily the heart. That's the material, sensual desires. The heart wants transcendence. The heart wants connection with the soul. It's not the soul where the mind is being focused to pleasure. That's not what the soul can't enjoy anything in this world. It can't enjoy a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. It can't enjoy it. The soul doesn't enjoy it because it's connecting with matter. Right? The soul will get great bliss from being in the holy Dharma, even if we're not aware of it. The soul is electrified. The soul is so joyful once we reach the holy Dharma, and that will permeate through the body. And the soul loves to hear the holy hymns of the Vedic chants. It's like now, this is very beautiful, actually, what we're hearing in the background. And all of the activities of the devotees are very, very pleasing to the soul. But the activities of those who are seeking bhukti or mukti, liberation, are disastrous for the soul. They'll just run us into another life, and it'll be eternally seeking there practically. This is the viewpoint of those who regard mukti as the object of attainment, and the Shastras propounding Gyan Kand present this analysis of sadhya and sadhan. So in other words, you can attain anything by the process. You can obtain bhukti or mukti. The Shastras are Kamadhenu, and they arrange different situations for the jivas according to their adhikar level of qualification. Mukti is generally understood to be the cessation of the individual ego. However, if the jivas retain their individual existence and identities when they attain it, mukti cannot be the final attainment. If mukti is going to annihilate the soul, huh?
You jumped a page.
Sorry?
You jumped a page, Raj.
I jumped a page.
Yeah.
Thank you.
From 268.
Okay, let me just recap. I just recap on page 267 a minute. I've just skipped a page. The material world is an abode to facilitate enjoyment through the material senses. Thank you. The pleasure one enjoys through the senses from birth until death is known as enjoyment pertaining to life. Aika Sukya. There are many different types of sensual pleasure. I'm going to stop now because the bhajan is very loud, but we'll continue this study tomorrow. Fascinating topics. Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Shri Varahadev ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Go Premanandi. So we've come to our page 268, and we've been discussing Brajanath. He's come and he's sitting beside Raghunath Das Babaji under a beautiful bakul tree, I think it was. Was it? Who remembers? Nobody remembers. I'll just go back in. I want to know what type of tree he was sitting under.
The tree was 2 days ago.
Huh?
The tree was 2 days ago, so that's maybe why we don't.
You see, that's how good our memory is. First set up for my report, God, General Reed, Bruce for the first one. Shiva Sangam. Brajanath took a seat on the platform beneath a bakula tree. I thought it was a bakula tree, but my mind doubted it because I haven't seen so many bakula trees. Probably they've knocked them all down. So it was a bakula tree that he was sitting under. And Raghunath Das is beside him, and they've made their connection. And now Raghunath, he's inquired, what is the sadhan and sadhya? And Raghunath has started to explain the sadhana and sadhya in a very beautiful way. And we've reached the part where we're still discussing what is karma yoga. So we're still at this part. So this is on the top of page 268. There are many different types of sensual pleasures. This is all under the umbrella of Karma Yoga. Sensual pleasures that one may enjoy in the state one attains after death. And these are called amutrika shuka, enjoyment pertaining to the next life. For example, the pleasures of the celestial sphere include residing in Swaga, the higher planets, or Indraloka, the planet of Indra, and witnessing the dancing of the celestial society girls known as Apsaras, drinking the nectar of immortality, smelling the fragrant flowers, and seeing the beauty of the Nandan Kanan gardens, seeing the wonder of Indrapuri, hearing the melodious songs of the Gandharvas, and associating with the celestial damsels known as Vidyaharis. So these are all increased subtle pleasures. As the consciousness, as the jiva goes up through the different planets, the subtle pleasures increase. This gross planet of Earth planet is we go into the lower planets where there's great pleasure. They're all even more gross than here. They only think about the bodily platform. It's in the 5th canto, in the subterranean heavenly planets. And it's described as they have elixirs for the hair and the body and the skin, and they're very concerned with making their bodies look very beautiful externally, and they have sensual engagements, etc. And it's even almost more beautiful than the heavenly planets, but there's not even a whisper of Shuddha Dharma there. There's no sunlight even. It's the light of the nagas, from their jewels in their foreheads, create the light in the subterranean heavenly planets. But it's fascinating to read that chapter in the 5th canto, because it seems full of pleasure, but it's actually completely gross pleasure compared to the finer pleasures that we've just read now in this last paragraph. These are finer, more subtle. Above Indraloka in succession are the planets of Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, and finally Brahmaloka, the highest planet in the material universe. The Shastras give fewer descriptions of Mahaloka and Janaloka than of the celestial pleasures in Indraloka, and fewer descriptions still of Tapaloka and Brahmaloka. In contrast, the sensual pleasures of this earth planet, Burloka, is extremely gross. The rule is that the higher the planetary system, the more subtle are the senses and their objects. That's a natural evolution of the senses, but it's in the material realm. This is the only difference between these realms. Otherwise, the happiness available on all these planets is merely the pleasure of the senses. Important point. Doesn't really matter where you go. It's only the senses. If the senses are more advanced, they'll be absorbed in more advanced happiness, but still it'll be material happiness, whether you're in Swaga or whether you're in the lower planets or whether you're on this planet. It's all nimitic. This is the only difference between these realms. Otherwise, the happiness available on all these planets is merely the pleasure of the senses, and there is no happiness other than this sensual happiness. Scriptural happiness, chitsuk, is absent on all. What did I say? Spiritual happiness. What did I say? Scriptural. Spiritual happiness, chitsuk, is absent on all these planets, for the happiness found in such places is related to the subtle body, which consists of the mind, intelligence, and ego, and is merely a semblance of pure consciousness. He's speaking to Brajanath about this. Brajanath is not aware of the clinical analysis of this. He's aware of many verses, etc., in Nyaya and argument and debate, and something of this in a hazy way, but not exactly like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is making it really clear. The enjoyment of all these types of pleasure is called bhukti, bhukti, mukti, spriha javat. And the sadhan for the jivas trapped in the cycle of karma consists of the activities they adopt to fulfill their aspirations for bhukti. It is said in the Yagya Veda 2.5.5, Swargo karmo swamedam yajata. Those who desire to attain the heavenly planets should perform the Ashvamedha Yagya. This is all powerful knowledge. If you want karma yoga, and if you meet someone who is really intent on attaining sensual pleasures and happiness, and there are billions of them on the planet, you direct them to engage in karma yoga. And these are the stairway. This is the staircase for karma yoga that he's describing. The Shastras describe many different types of sadhana to obtain bhukti, such as a particular type of fire sacrifice called Agnishtoma. Actually, this Agnishtoma is the fire sacrifice that when the Yagyapatnis in the 10th canto, it's described when Krishna came to the forest and was asking for food. The Brahmanas, they were performing this Agnishtoma sacrifice. They wanted to attain Swagaloka. It's described clearly by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in the commentary. This was their desire. This was why they couldn't go to Krishna in the forest, but their wives didn't have that desire. Sacrifice called Agnishtoma, oblations offered to a certain class of devatas. Is it too hot in here? Okay. Digging wells, building temples, and performing similar beneficial works for others, and ceremonies performed on the days of the new and full moon. Bhukti is the object of attainment, sadhya, for those who aspire for material enjoyment. Okay, he's clearly putting the staircase here. Some of those who are oppressed by the miseries of material existence consider the 14 planetary systems, which are the abodes of all material enjoyment, worthless. These people, therefore, desire to become free from the cycle of karma. They consider that mukti is the only sadhya, and that bhukti is simply bondage. Such people say, those whose inclination for material enjoyment has not yet waned may realize their goal of bhukti by following karma kanda. However, Bhagavad Gita states, you can say,
Shine punne matyam lokam visanti.
when their pious credits have been exhausted, they again enter the planets of mortality. So this is from the higher world. You automatically have to come when you've finished your credits. This shloka establishes clearly and indisputably that bhukti is perishable and not eternal. Whatever is subject to decay is material, not spiritual. One should undertake sadhana only to obtain an eternal objective. Mukti is eternal, so it must certainly be the sadhya for the jivas. This is what they're saying. He's not actually saying that mukti is eternal. Well, it is eternal in a sense. If you go into the Brahman itself is eternal. So you're going to emerge into an eternal place. Mukti can be obtained by 4 types of sadhana. These are discriminating between eternal and temporary objects, renouncing enjoyment for the fruits of this world and the next. We are performing these same precepts, but we have a different objective. Don't be confused here. This is the path of Gyan that he's describing, the path of moksha. And it's a similar discipline to engage in bhakti also, initially. Developing 6 qualities, such as control of the mind and senses. This is absolutely imperative for the bhakta. And cultivating the desire for liberation. Aha! That's the defect. That's where we're different, you see? So 3 of them are the same, but the last one, the goal, the sadhya, is different. These 4 activities are the true sadhana for liberation. This is the viewpoint of those who regard mukti as the object. Understand? This is what he's describing. This is for mukti, of attainment, object of attainment. And the Shastras propounding Gyan Kand present this analysis of sadhya and sadhana. Very clear. Yes? The Shastras are Kamandenu, and they arrange different situations for the jivas according to their adhikas, level of qualification. Mukti is generally understood to be the cessation of the individual ego. However, if the jivas retain their individual existence and identities when they attain it, Mukti cannot be the final attainment. If they don't annihilate their false ego, it's not the final attainment. And to cook the false ego will deny you entrance into the spiritual world forever. My Gurudev often described this. If we put chickpeas in a frying pan and cook them, you can never sprout those chickpeas again. They're cooked. That's the Nirvishesh Brahm. Why are they cooked? Because you have no more desire. It's a desireless zone. And that's a very materially satisfying place. Brahmabhuta, Prasanatma, Nasochiti, no hankering, no lamentation. You don't want anything. You absolutely, utterly don't want anything. That's a stage of liberation. But you also don't want your relationship with Krishna. So it reminds me of that, like chemotherapy is supposed to blast out the disease, but it blasts everything else along the way. So this is what liberation is like. You get blasted, everything gets lost, ultimately. Where are we up to? Mukti cannot be the final attainment. This means that the jivas can only take mukti up to the limit of annihilation of the individual self, nirvana. But that's, like I said, you cook it. It can't sprout again. But the jivas are eternal, so they cannot really be annihilated. And I've often described when the jiva merges into that Brahmajyoti, and he's not serving directly the Lord, Rupa Goswami describes that the illumination from his soul is going to enhance Krishna's Brahmajyoti. So he can't get away from service to the Supreme Lord. He's actually still serving the Lord in that condition. This is confirmed in the Svetasvatara Upanishad.
Nityo nityanam chetanaschetananam.
He is the supreme eternal being amongst all eternal beings. And he is the supreme conscious entity amongst all conscious entities. So beautiful to consider. This is Krishna, is the supreme. This and other Vedic mantras establish that the jiva is eternal, and that annihilation of his individual existence, nirvana, is therefore impossible. Don't tell the Buddhists. You'll pop them out of the water forever. They won't believe you, though, because they just don't want relationship. Those who accept this conclusion understand that the jiva continues to exist as an individual after he attains mukti. That's very important. Consequently, they do not accept bhukti or mukti as the ultimate goal. Rather, they consider that bhukti and mukti are actually extraneous goals which are foreign to the nature of the jiva. How amazing. These are not the jiva's pure dharma. This karma yoga is contradictory to the jiva's pure nature of service to Krishna. He's looking for service for himself in the path of Kand. It's not his nature, it's not his dharma. Or he's looking for liberation. This is not his dharma. His Sanatan dharma is actually only to please the Lord. That's what he's born with. He's a Vibhinamsa. He's a part of the Lord coming through the Swamsa avatars. He's connected in that way, like the hand is connected to the body to serve the body. The hand has no other function. If the hand tries to independently follow the path of karma or gyan, it's going to fail. But if the hand performs its natural function, it'll be completely successful. This is a natural process. It's naturally, this seed is residing naturally in the heart. Prakatamiti sadyate. It's the natural goal of the jiva. It's not difficult then. We make it so difficult. Every endeavor has a goal and some means to attain it. The result that one strives to attain is known as sadhya, and the practice one adopts to bring about the result is known as sadhana. If you reflect deeply, you will see that the goals of living entities and the means that they adopt to attain them are like successive links in a chain. What is sadhya, goal, now becomes the sadhan, right? My goal is karma yoga. My sadhya is to enjoy. And then when that is achieved, then that becomes the sadhana to engage in the next process, like that. It's always continuing. What is the sadhya goal now becomes the sadhana, the means to obtain the next sadhya later on. If one adopts this chain of cause and effect, one eventually comes to the final link in the chain. The effect or sadhya that is attained in that final stage is the highest and ultimate sadhya, which does not become a sadhana means for anything else because there is no other sadhya beyond it. That's the end of the road. Bhakti is the last link in the chain. There is a last link in the chain. When one crosses all the links of this chain of sadhya and sadhana, one eventually reaches the final link, which is known as bhakti. Bhakti is therefore the highest sadhya because it is the jiva's eternal state of perfection, nitya siddha bhav. It's eternal. That's the only place that the jiva wants to invest his time and energy in, something that is going to be eternally beneficial for the welfare of my soul. Nothing less than that should be on our order list. Every action in human life is a link in the chain of sadhana and sadhya, or cause and effect. The karma section of this chain of cause and effect consists of many links joined together. When one progresses beyond this, a further series of links form another section called Gyan. Finally, the Bhakti section begins where the Gyan section ends. And finally, Sadhya in the chain of karma is the final Sadhya in the chain of karma is Bhukti, right? That's the goal of material endeavor, of sacrifices, is material pleasure. The final Sadhya in the chain of Gyan is Mukti, right? And the final sadhya in the chain of bhakti is prema bhakti. If one reflects upon the nature of the jiva's perfected state, one must conclude that bhakti is both sadhana and sadhya. Karma and jnana are not the final sadhya or sadhana, for they are intermediary stages. This is what I said at the beginning. They are steps on a ladder, and if you try to separate one from the other, you lose the connection with the ladder, and you're going to lose the sadhya finally. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes this so beautifully. It's very similar to this Bhakti Tattva Vivek. That little book, Bhakti Tattva Vivek, so beautifully delineates the same path. These 4 chapters describing this verse, Anyabilasita Shunyam. Brajanath, there are many prominent statements in the Upanishads that do not establish that bhakti is supreme, or that it is the ultimate sadhya of attainment. It is said in the Brihat Aranya Upanishad 4.5.15 and 2.4.24, Kena kam prashyate. Who should see? Whom will they see? And by what means? It is also, I don't really understand, how does that fit in? Who will they see? It's not telling who is the object. It's just indicating something. Who will they see? Who should they see? Whom will they see? And by what means? It is stated in the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad 1.4.10, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahm. It is said in the Aitreya Upanishad, Pragyanam Brahm. Consciousness is Brahm. And in the Chandogya Upanishad 6.8.7, it is said, Tatvam Asi Svetaketu. O Svetaketu, you are that Brahm. Considering all these statements, what is wrong in regarding mukti as the supreme sadhya? These are various statements from the scripture that point to mukti as being the supreme sadhya. These statements are in the Vedas. Babaji is going to describe this very clearly now. I have already explained that there are many different types of sadhya, according to different tendencies. One cannot accept the validity of mukti as long as one has any desire for bhukti, right? Even in the verse, this kleshagni shubhada, this is described as the sadhan for bhakti. Then moksha lukhuta krit, having a distaste for mukti. But if one is on the path of mukti, then and still is wanting bhukti at the same time, it's not compatible. One cannot accept the validity of mukti as long as one has any desire for bhukti, and many of the statements in Shastra are written for people on that level. For instance, the Astamba Shrota Sutra states, Akshyam Havai Chaturmasya Yagina. Those who observe the vow of Chaturmasya obtain perpetual residence in heaven. Interesting. If you perform Chaturmasya, you can attain perpetual residence in heaven. We perform the same Chaturmasya, but for a different sadhya, and can get a completely different result because we're focused on a different sadhya. But it's the same instruction. This is what he's pointing out. Do you understand? It's very logical, I think. Huh?
There is no perpetual residence in heaven. That's what he's already stated.
Yes, I was thinking the same thing. You've been fooled. The Shastras have fooled you to say that. But they don't know that. Don't tell them that. Maybe it's maybe it seems perpetual if the demigod's lifespan is one manvantara, and that's 309 million years, which would appear perpetual to one who is actually living for that long. So it would seem perpetual, but in the ultimate, it's not.
But in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, once your punya is
Reduced,
you'll again come back.
it's already said, once your credits have expired, then again you have to resume.
Means until you have that punya, it will be like perpetual.
Very good.
Like what?
As long as you have that punya, it will be perpetual.
Right.
It's like when we say the jiva is, the Bada jiva is eternally bound. He's eternally bound until he becomes unbound. You understand? I can remember when I first understood that, I thought, wow, that's incredible. When you first understand that, or rather, sorry, when you are bound and then you become unbound, you're no longer eternally bound. Yes, very good.
Is it possible to achieve bhakti?
Huh? Loudly?
Is it possible to achieve bhakti from the heavenly planets?
Never.
You can't go
Never.
You can only
Never. Never. Who's the spiritual master? You have to speak loudly every time you speak. Who's the spiritual master in the heavenly planets? Brihaspati. And he's described as being Brahman realized. So if he's the spiritual master, Brahman realized, that's as high as you can go. The spiritual planets are described as
bodies.
Boga Yoni. Yoni means species. Boga means enjoyment. The species of pleasure. Boga Yoni. And in the lower planets, they're called Papa Yoni. The species of sin. That's what they're living. And on this plane, it's Karma Yoni. The species that incur karma. And it's only from this Burloka where you can actually go to the transcendental realm. Because you have no desire. Going to the transcendental realm, as we've discussed, all depends on your greed, that rag, that lobha. If you don't have that lobha, because everything's so beautiful in Swagaloka, why would you have any desire to go anywhere else? It's like liberation. You're so happy in the liberated state, that's why you've cooked your opportunity to go forward from there. Because you're completely satisfied. You don't think anything exists other than that. That's the huge illusion. But Krishna's so kind. He brings you back here so you can put your face in the mud and suffer and actually want something more and then start to question. I don't like it here. I want something else. Then you hear about karma yoga. And then you realize, well, I don't really want that either. Then you hear about liberation. Well, I don't really want that either. Well, what do you want? Oh, I've heard about the transcendental world. Oh, you want that? Very good. Then practice that path. Krishna's so merciful. It's designed in such an extraordinary way. Isn't it? Jud. Jud means dull. Anand means bliss. Jud Ananda. But this whole material world is full of Jud Ananda.
But there it's the subtle Jad.
Subtle. We've already described that as the planetary systems go up, the subtle pleasures become increased. It doesn't increase in happiness. We think from here, oh, they're enjoying up there. But they're not getting any more sensation of happiness than we're getting here from an ice cream. You understand? It's the same degree of happiness that you experience having an ice cream on a hot day or something like that, you know? Or sex pleasure is the particular gross happiness that everyone seeks in this realm. In the higher planets, they have higher pleasures than sex pleasure. It goes beyond there. It's all in the subtle realm.
But they also have sex pleasure.
They have there too. But it's not as high as some of the other pleasures, like drinking the nectar of elixir and just their culture of dance and song, etc. Apsaras, yes. You're getting the picture? You don't want to go there. This is the idea when we come to the 9th canto in the Bhagavatam. There are so many pastimes about the devas and their extraordinary activities. You know, cursing, counter-cursing, taking the body of a half man, half woman, you know, a woman for 6 months, a man for 6 months, all because of, and this is all in the heavenly planets. And Shukadeva is trying to make it very graphically clear. This is what it's like in Swagaloka. It may look very pretty from the outside, all sugar and sweet and dancing apsaras and everything, but actually what they incur. Just today I was hearing this chapter 20, and Brihaspati, who's the spiritual master, he tries to impregnate this particular woman who's already pregnant. And it's not his wife, it's someone else's wife. And that child, the semen, wants to come into the womb, but the child inside the womb kicks that other child out. I mean, it's just amazing. And then that child is left like in the grass, basically. And like Vasishtha Rishi, where did he come from? He came from the semen that was passed when they saw Menaka, her ankle bells, that the sage Vishwamitra, he discharged his semen and it went in the bushes. And then someone came, put it in a pot, and that became Vasishtha Rishi. It's like all of these pastimes are there, and they're not really. Sukadeva goes right into the nitty-gritty. It's not to attract us, sane, material, grounded earth people. We don't want that world at all, not in any way. I think we're on to the top of 273. Correct? Someone listening? Okay. Gyan. Okay, where are we? On the
Chaturmasa.
Chaturmasya, right back
Perpetual
there.
residence.
Which line? Which paragraph? Advancement in order to. Okay. Oh, right at the top. Okay. Those who observe the vow of Chaturmasya obtain perpetual residence in heaven. Yeah, you are sidetracking me with perpetual heaven. Does this mean that mukti is a worthless goal? The karmis desire only sense gratification. They cannot discover the recommendations from Shastra for mukti. Is that clear? If you're a karmi, you won't find the recommendations for mukti, because that's not what you're looking for. We have an expression in English when two people read a newspaper. Some read the white and some read the black. Depends what you want, what you're looking for. So the karmi, he's looking for sensual pleasure. He's not going to read about sitting in a circle of fire in the middle of summer and submerging yourself in a cold river in winter, or any sort of austerity life. He's not going to read that. He's just going to blank on it. It's like when someone is speaking a Ras guitar, for example, I've seen in my Gurudev when he was speaking one time in San Francisco, these 3 people came in, and they looked, like hippie type people, who were wanting to be happy and liberated. And as soon as my Gurudev started talking about Vrindavan Dham pastimes, all 3 of them just went to sleep completely. It was amazing to watch it. Their adhikar wasn't developed to actually even inquire in that direction.
That's special.
So there's no problem with it, because it's automatically closed. It's like when
In Madhurya Kandamini, it says that when you hear Harikatha and you're sleeping, that's because of your bad karma.
yes.
You
And in
don't-
Chaitanya Charitamrita, you remember also Krishnadas Kaviraj, he's saying he's hesitant to write these things because the camel-like and ass-like men will not know how to take with them. And then he realizes these camel and ass-like men won't even hear these things. They don't have the frequency to hear these truths.
Birds of the same feather.
Huh?
Like birds of the same feather fly
A
together.
little bit, yes. But it's more like frequency
Yeah.
of sound vibration. Yes, you can say it a little bit like that. Yeah, close on track. Does this mean that mukti is a worthless goal? The karmis desire only sense gratification. They cannot discover the recommendations from Shastra for mukti. But does this mean that mukti is not described anywhere in the Vedas, just because they can't see it, the karmis? A few of the rishis who recommend the path of karma maintain that renunciation is only prescribed for those who are incompetent, those karma yogis, and that those who are competent should perform karma, should be active. Don't just sit and chant all day. Quick, go and do some work. This is not actually true. These instructions are given for people on lower levels of spiritual advancement in order to promote their faith in their respective positions. He's saying again and again, it's a ladder. It's a step by step by step. And we should appreciate this step. Never condemn someone who's on that karmi platform. Just try to bring them to a higher awareness of what the other steps are about. But don't berate them. Don't disturb them like that. It is inauspicious for jivas to neglect the duties for which they are responsible. If one carries out one's duties in full faith that they are appropriate for one's present level, one easily gains access to the next level of qualification. This is what I said. You do what you're eligible to do. Don't try and do something that you're not eligible for. Consequently, prescriptions in the Vedas promoting this type of faith have not been condemned. You understand? The karma yogi axioms are not condemned because there are many on that platform that have to perform their karma. So therefore, all those are in Shastra. If you read Manu Samhita, it describes how man can live by performing his, like if you want to drink wine, then you perform a goat sacrifice and you drink some wine during that. So you're facilitating that type of sense gratification. But that's not the objective of the Vedas. It's just the Vedas are so compassionate to all souls of all natures and adhikas. One easily gains access to the next level of qualification. Consequently, prescriptions in the Vedas promoting this type of faith have not been condemned. On the contrary, if one condemns such prescriptions, one is liable to fall down. He'll be offensive. All jivas who have attained elevation in this world have done so by strictly adhering to the duties for which they were qualified. We've attained a human birth. We've come from a very low history. If you really could see the whole history, whatever is our history today, we've come through millions of births and we finally achieved this human form of life through many different degrees of being like karmis, being like jnanis, hearing about bhakti yoga now. So we've come through these different stages. Gyan is actually superior to karma because it yields mukti. Nevertheless, the shastras that discuss competence for karma praise karma most highly and do not substantiate the preeminence of Gyan. Similarly, where the Shastras discuss competence for Gyan, we find all the mantras that you have mentioned which praise Mukti. However, just as eligibility for Gyan is superior to that for karma, the eligibility for bhakti is superior to that for Gyan. Mantras such as Tattvam Asi and Aham Brahmasmi praise impersonal liberation, and they strengthen the faith of those who seek it to follow the path for which they are qualified. For this reason, it is not wrong to establish the eminence of Gyan. He's answering Brajanath's question. Brajanath was quoting impersonal, like Brahma Gyan, Brahmavad, axiom, Mayavadi. But this is okay for a certain stage. However, Gyan is not the ultimate sadhan, and the sadhya of Gyan, namely Mukti, is not the ultimate sadhya. The Vedic mantras establish the final conclusion that bhakti is the sadhan and prem bhakti is the sadhya. Okay, now he's going to go in a long discussion, beautiful discussion, about these apparent Mahavakyas. He's going to quote these, and he's saying that actually, I'll just give you a summary of what's about to come. We'll discuss tomorrow. These Mahavakyas is what they've picked out of the Shastra. And Babaji is saying this is actually offensive. The whole of the Veda is a Mahavakya. You can't say that this is good and that's good. You can't just pick out one expression and say, I'll hang all my faith on this one point. You have to reconcile with the whole rest of Shastra. So all of Shastra, he's saying, are the Mahavakyas. He's going to explain this tomorrow. We'll go into this last part tomorrow. This is very beautiful description here. Are you all following closely? It's simple, you know? It's not difficult to appreciate. But tomorrow, if we're fortunate, it's Narottam Das Thakur's appearance day tomorrow. But if I speak briefly on him, we can probably conclude this chapter tomorrow, which would be nice. But we can't walk past Narottam Das Thakur, who is a great preceptor in our line. He has to be acknowledged and glorified. Otherwise, we'll be making offense. So, Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So we're on page 273, and we read this yesterday, but I said I wanted to read it again just to emphasize it. So basically, Babaji has been answering the doubts in Brajanath's mind about various Mayavad perspectives on the absolute truth. And he's been so beautifully reconciling them. First of all, he was talking about this Tattvam Asi Svetaketu and various what he calls Mahavakyas. But now we're going to discuss the reality of these Mahavakyas. So in the middle of page 273, Brajanath is asking the questions. The mantras that I quoted are principal statements of the Vedas, known as Mahavakyas. How can the sadhya and sadhan that they put forward possibly be extraneous? Understand, when we read something like this, Brajanath from birth, a Brahmin, trained, has brought up to believe all his life that these are Mahavakyas. This is a great change in consciousness for him to receive this transcendental knowledge and have that misconception purified. We have to empathize with the history of Brajanath, where he's come from, and what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is demonstrating here. Babaji, the Vedic statements you quoted just a moment ago are not described as Mahavakyas anywhere in the Vedas, nor have they been described as superior to other statements. Teachers of Gyan have proclaimed that these statements are Mahavakyas in order to establish the preeminence of their own doctrine. They're banging their own drum. You understand? But in reality, Pranav, Om, is the only Mahavakya. All other Vedic statements relate only to particular aspects of Vedic knowledge. We were listening this morning to Prem Prayojan tell us the conclusion of this Jaiva Dharma is the highest Siddhanta. This is the Siddhanta that we're reading now. This is the Siddhanta that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has come to establish. He's come to purify all these different misconceptions. There are powerful misconceptions here that he's clarifying. Just in a few lines, every single sentence, he's cutting these misconceptions that have arisen, that have clouded the perfect path of the Vaishnava Dharma, which would be tragic for the Vaishnava Dharma to go into the future with these misconceptions there, right? It would just completely deform it. Like we know in other religions, if there's misconceptions there, they just get exaggerated as time goes along. All other Vedic statements relate only to particular aspects of Vedic knowledge. It's Vedic knowledge. This is the Siddhanta. What is the Vedic knowledge? Not what some individual has picked out as, oh, this is it or that's it. They're calling it Mahavakyas to try and get support for their personal doctrine. Sankaracharya. It would not be incorrect to refer to all the statements of the Vedas as Mahavakyas. Well, that's very powerful. All the statements of the Vedas are Mahavakyas. However, it is dogmatic to single out one particular statement of the Vedas as the Mahavakya and to label all others as ordinary. What does dogmatic mean exactly?
Fixed to a singular conception.
Yes, very good definition. Fixed to a singular conception. Dogmatic. Fixed to a singular conception. They're not ready to, there's no broadness in their vision at all. This is what we,
this as the truth.
and that's it. We also accept, the complete Siddhanta as the truth, but that truth is very broad, and that truth is applicable to all jivas. All jivas, jivara surup hoi krishnera nitya, have the same relationship with the Lord in the sense of servant, service to the Lord. So this is across the board for everybody. It's not sectarian because everyone has service to the Lord. Because sometimes, we think, well, we are saying we are right, and we are. But how is that correct? We are supporting Sanatan Dharma, which means the eternal. This is what we cleared in the very first chapter, describing what is Dharma. Because Sannyasi Thakur, he says that there are so many teachers answering what is the nature of Dharma, and they're quite different. It becomes confusing. And then Babaji goes into a whole discussion on what is pure Dharma. What are the three Vastus? That's Krishna, Maya, and the Jiva. And what is the relationship between the three? This is pure Dharma because it's relative to everybody. It's not sectarian. There has to come a point when we know there's lots of fake, but there has to be the real one. There has to be the real one. You understand? Is it conclusive that we have the absolute truth, but we're not dogmatic about it also. We're dogmatic about certain aspects of the truth in the fact that we're all servants of Krishna. But what it's relating to here is a singular doctrine and a singular statement that they are calling Mahavakyas to support that doctrine separately to the rest of the Vedas. All of the Vedas have to be included, to be appreciated, to have it properly understood. Those who do so are committed an offense to the Vedas. I'll read that last part. However, it is dogmatic to single out one particular statement of the Vedas as the Mahavakya and to label all others as ordinary. Those who do so are committing an offense to the Vedas. The Vedas describe many extraneous goals. We've discussed that. Karma, go to Swagaloka. Yes, it's good for you if that's your adhikar. Gyan Yoga, yes, study for moksha. Yes, it's good if that's your adhikar. So they'll be propounding that. But that's only part. The Vedas describe many extraneous goals and the means to attain them. So they sometimes praise karma kand and sometimes mukti. But in the ultimate analysis, the Vedas conclude that bhakti alone is both sadhan and sadhya. Oh, Gopal. Just speak loudly. The Vedas are like a cow, and Sri Nandanandan is the milkman. In the Bhagavad Gita, he has revealed the purport of the Vedas regarding their ultimate aim.
tapasvibhyo
Louder,
tapasvibhyo
louder.
tapasvibhyo
Tapasvidyo deko yogi. Louder. You can speak loudly.
tapasvibhyo diko yogi jnanibhyopi mato dikha कर्मिभ्यश्चदा चादिक्यो योगी तस्माद् योगी भवार्जुन योगिनाम अपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेना अंतरात्मनां श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां सा मे युक्तमतो मतः.
O Arjuna, a yogi is greater than all types of ascetics, fruitive workers, and those who cultivate impersonal knowledge aiming at liberation. Therefore, become a yogi, and I consider that the greatest of all yogis is one who is attached to me with firm faith and who constantly worships me with full expression of the heart. It is also said in the Svetashvarta Upanishad 6.23.
यस्य देवे परा भक्तिर् यथा देवे तथा गुरौ तस्येता कथिता हि अर्थात् प्रकाशात्मा महात्मनः.
All the confidential purports of the Vedas are fully revealed to that great soul who has the same parabhakti for his Gurudev as he has for Sri Bhagavan. This is essential. But it's still not a Mahavakya. It's part of the whole Vedic teaching. It is said in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, Purva Vibhag 2.2,
भक्तिरस्य भजनं तद् इहामृतोपधि नैरास्येन ऐवस्मिन् मनसा कल्पनम् एतद् एव च नैष्कर्म्यम्.
Bhakti performed for the pleasure of Sri Krishna is known as bhajan. Bhakti performed for the pleasure of Sri Krishna is known as bhajan. This means to give up all desires for enjoyment in this world and the next, to dedicate one's mind unto Krishna, and to develop a feeling of complete unity with him because of an overwhelming sense of prem. If we love Krishna, we only want to please him. This bhajan also entails freedom from all result-orientated activity. What's that? Savai pumsam parodama yato bhakti ahoitiki apratihata. And this will satisfy the soul. Yeyatma supersediti. It will satisfy the supersoul. If supersoul is satisfied, then your soul will be satisfied. We are endeavoring to satisfy the supersoul. The supersoul is a witness, antaryami. The supersoul doesn't interfere with our independence at all. It cannot. It's not allowed. Its dharma is not to interfere. But when that transcendental jiva makes contact with his self in loving service, then that Paramatma, which while Sadguru is on the planet, Guru will take the place of Paramatma. Guru will be directing in the heart. And when Guru physically leaves this world, then again Paramatma will enter the heart. My Gurudev has described like this. It is said in the Brihat Aranya Upanishad,
Atmanam eva priyam upashita.
One should worship the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna as the dearest object of one's affection. He's expressing what is bhakti now. He hasn't explained bhakti to Brajanath yet. Now these verses are explaining through the Shastras what is the nature of Shuddha bhakti. How distinct is it from karma and gyan? Understand? In the Brihat Aranyaka Upanishad, it is also said,
आत्मा वा अरे दृष्टव्य श्रोतव्य मंतव्य निरिदयस्तिव्यः.
Oh, Maitreyi. Maitreyi is not Maitreya, it's the wife of Maitreyi. One should see, hear about, think of, and meditate upon the supreme absolute truth, Paramatma. He's speaking to his wife here. When one studies these Vedic statements carefully, it is clear that bhakti is the best form of sadhana. He doesn't really have to convince Brajnath. Brajnath's already halfway there. But what's the vital ingredient here? It's that Shuddha Bhakta who's relating all these truths into the heart of Brajanath. It's the guru connection. Raghunath Das Babaji is acting as the guru of Brajanath. He's instructing him. So through that relationship, Brajanath will easily be able to understand. If he just read these topics singularly, like if we just read Jaiva Dharma on our own without connection to guru, if we're not purifying the consciousness by chanting, etc., by doing the other directives, we will not understand these topics. They'll just float over our heads. It's true. Brajanath, the Karmakand section of the Vedas gives instructions to perform bhakti to Ishvara, who bestows the results of all action. In the Gyan-kand section, we also find instructions to satisfy Hari by performing bhakti through the medium of 4 types of sadhan, known as sadhan chatushtaya. So how can bhakti be the sadhya if it is the means to obtain bhakti and mukti? Bhukti and mukti, sorry. Since bhakti is the means, it ceases to exist when it produces bhukti and mukti. This is the general principle. Please educate me on this question. Do you understand the question? Tell me. What do you understand?
When the process, when you do the process, it ends when you get the result.
Yes.
So how can that be the goal as well as the process?
Yes. Very good. Very good, Gokul. So, if the process is to attain a certain goal, when you've attained that goal, then that's the end of the process. But we don't see that. The karma yogi is still dissatisfied. He hasn't satisfied his heart. That karma yogi is like the example of bhukti. It's not completely satisfying. Still that fire of desire is burning. And then when you follow the path of Gyan Kand, still in that place of moksha, you've incinerated the opportunity to develop a relationship with Krishna. So ultimately, it's not totally satisfying either. So in both cases, you haven't reached the final sadhya, because neither conclusion is going to give you that yayatma suprasidati. It's not going to give you satisfaction of the soul, neither karma yoga or jnana yoga. We'll see what Babaji says. It is true that performing the regulated practices, sadhan, of bhakti in karma kand gives material enjoyment, and bhakti sadhan performed in Gyan Kand gives mukti. Yes, it does. If you perform this as karma mishra bhakti or Gyan mishra bhakti. Understand, these are the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. One cannot achieve any result without satisfying Parameshwara, and he is only satisfied by bhakti. If Parameshwara is not satisfied, you won't be satisfied. I just explained that verse, Yeyatma Suprasidati, because when I first read that verse, I was understanding, oh, when I am satisfied, Yeyatma Suprasidati, this will satisfy me. But my Gurudev said, no, this will satisfy Supersoul. And if Supersoul is satisfied, then your transcendental self will be satisfied, beyond the material self. Understand? This is why he said like that. He is the reservoir of all potencies, and whatever potency is found within the jivas is within inert matter, or within inert matter is only an infinitesimal display of his potency. Karma and Gyan cannot satisfy Ishvara. We can say in one sense Ishvara is like the Supersoul. Karma and Gyan give a result only with the help of Bhagavat Bhakti. We have to have bhakti to support even the path of karma kand and gyan kand. Bhakti must be there. Like Vedavyas, he was immersed in bhakti, the bhakti process, but he was only writing about karma kand and gyan kand until he met Narad, until he had that understanding fully that everything is coming from Guru. Guru is the same as Krishna. Yasya Prasad, Bhagavat Prasad, the same, non-different. They are incapable of producing a result independently. Karma Yoga can't independently produce a result. Gyan Yoga can't independently. It must be dependent on bhakti. Therefore, it is seen that there is an arrangement for some performance of a semblance of bhakti or karma and gyan. What do you say? For some performance of a semblance of bhakti in karma and gyan. However, this is not Shuddha Bhakti, rather it is only Bhakti Abhas. Accordingly, the bhakti seen in karma and gyan is a mere semblance of devotion, not Shuddha Bhakti. When we say Karma Mishra Bhakti or Gyan Mishra Bhakti, this is Bhakti Abhyas. This is what Bhaktivinoda Thakur was talking about. It is this Bhakti Abhas that is instrumental in bringing forth the results of those pursuits. They perform Bhakti Abhas and they purified that and come to the conclusion of their karmic practice or their gyan practice, and it will lead to bhakti. There are two types of bhakti abhas: Shuddha bhakti abhas, pure, and Vida bhakti abhas, adulterated. I shall describe pure bhakti abhas later, but for the present you should know that there are three types of adulterated bhakti abhas. These are bhakti abhas adulterated with fruitive action. That's Karma Mishra Bhakti. Bhakti Abhas adulterated with monistic knowledge. And that's Gyan Bhakti. And Bhakti Abhas adulterated with both fruitive action and monistic knowledge. While a person is performing a yajna, he may say, O Indra, O Pusana, the Devata of the sun, please be merciful and give us the results of this yajna. All activities exhibiting a semblance of bhakti adulterated with this type of desire are known as a semblance of bhakti, adulterated with fruitive action. He wants something. He wants some fruit. It's karma kand. Some magnanimous souls have referred to this type of adulterated bhakti as devotion mixed with fruitive action, karma mishra bhakti. So this is clearly described in Bhagavad Gita in the first 6 chapters, in chapter 4, 5, and 6. Others have described it as activities to which the symptoms of bhakti are indirectly attributed. Arope siddha bhakti. We understand arope siddha bhakti. Arope siddha bhakti is that bhakti that, for example, I love to do gardening and I'll happen to offer the produce to Krishna. I love to paint and I'll happen to offer the product to Krishna. I love music and I'll happen to offer it to Krishna. But my love first is some karmic consideration, not it's not, my object is not devotion from the beginning. I love to cook, so I'll cook for Krishna. No, this is arope siddha bhakti. Understand? It's sakam karma bhakti. Another person may say, O Yadunandan, I have come to you out of fear of material existence. I chant your name, Hare Krishna, day and night. Please grant me liberation. O Supreme Lord, you are Brahm. I have fallen into the trap of Maya. Please deliver me from this entanglement and let me merge in oneness with you, crying for liberation. These sentiments are a semblance of bhakti adulterated with monistic knowledge. Some magnanimous souls have described this as devotion mixed with monistic knowledge, Gyan Mishra Bhakti. This is one of the propositions that Rai Ramananda puts towards Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's Gyan Mishra Bhakti. It's external. And others as activities to which the symptoms of bhakti are indirectly attributed, arope siddha bhakti. These adulterated forms of devotion are different from Shuddha Bhakti. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is so kind. He's purifying the whole conception of what is Shuddha Bhakti. It's pristine purity. It doesn't have any adulteration in it. When we understand how it's adulterated, we can understand how it's pure. So this is described as the tatashta lakshan. This is the negative aspect. And then it's going to describe the swarup lakshan, which is the positive.
Does Arup's Siddha Bhakti eventually get purified because the fruits?
That's the idea. If you're offering your produce from the garden to Krishna, eventually you will get mercy from Krishna for that activity. And that mercy will come in the form of recognition that Krishna is the priority, not your gardening. Ultimately, you will get pleasure from serving Krishna and realize this is actually nicer than the pleasure I'm getting from just digging in the garden. You understand? It is said in Gita 6:47, Shraddhavan bhajate yomam. I consider that one who worships me with faith is the best of all yogis. That's the conclusion of the Karmakand section. 647 is practically the end of the Karmakand section. It's in the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. The bhakti to which Sri Krishna is referring in this statement is Shuddha Bhakti. And this is our sadhan. When it is perfected, it is prem. Karma and Gyan are the means to obtain bhukti and mukti respectively. They are not the means by which the jiva can obtain his nitya siddha bhav, or eternal constitutional position of divine love. You got that? It's really clear. Bhaktivinoda Thakur just writes the deepest, most subtle conclusions in such a simple manner that even the most fallen condition, I was going to say Western conditioned souls, because we are the most fallen. We're not even born in any Varnashram system. We are Antyaja. We were outside, beyond the Varnashram system. We have nothing to be proud about. Actually, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says in the Bhagavad Gita in one commentary, he thinks that those devotees who were born in the Western world were previously like smarta Brahmins and became very proud, so they had to take birth in the Western countries to purify that pride. So we should find it easy to feel that we are on the bottom. And if you're on the bottom, you can't go any further. So that's a good place to be. When Brajanath had heard all these conclusive truths, he was unable to make further inquiries that day. Instead, he reflected within himself. The examination and discussion of all these subtle philosophical truths is superior to the dialectical analysis of Nyaya Shastra. Dialectical analysis of Nyaya Shastra. Babaji Mahashai is vastly learned in these matters. I will gradually acquire knowledge by inquiring from him about these topics. It is quite late, so I should return home now. So you see this seed of bhakti that he's planted in the heart of Brajanath? Brajanath didn't really have that seed of bhakti till he came into this conversation with Raghunath Das. Raghunath Das has purified his Nyaya dialectical, analytical misconceptions. And he's planted the seed of bhakti, of devotion to Krishna. That means his whole world is going to actually evolve and change. Thinking thus, he said, Babaji Mahashai, today by your mercy I have received essential, superior knowledge. I would like to come to you from time to time to receive this type of instruction. You are a deeply realized scholar and a great teacher. Please be merciful to me. Without the mercy, nothing will transpire. Kindly permit me to ask you just one more question today, since it is already late, and I will return home when I've heard your answer. Did Sachinandan Gauranga write any book in which all of his instructions can be found? If he did, I am anxious to read it. So his attachment for Mahaprabhu is being shown here to Raghunath Das. Babaji Mahashai replied, Sriman Mahaprabhu did not write any book of his own, but his followers wrote many books on his order. Mahaprabhu personally gave the jivas 8 instructions in the form of aphorisms, named Shikshastakam. These are like a necklace of jewels for the bhaktas. In these 8 shlokas, he has imparted the instructions of the Vedas, the Vedanta, the Upanishads and the Puranas in a concise and confidential manner, as if keeping a vast ocean in a single pitcher. So the entire Shikshastakam contains absolutely everything. But we need those Mahabhagavats to open it out for us and to show us what is within these prayers. These Shikshastakam prayers are everything. Based on these confidential instructions, the Bhaktas have composed 10 fundamental principles known as Dasamula. He is the Bhakta that's composed these, this Dasamula. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself has composed this. Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself is a repository of all these Siddhantas, fully. And he himself has composed these 10 ontological truths. This Dasamula succinctly describes both sadhya and sadhan with reference to the topics of sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan. You should understand this first. These three stages. Sambandha is the relationship initially with Krishna and the bhaktas, serving the Vaishnavas. That is essential to establish. And then is the abhideya, the path to achieve the goal. Therefore, you must know the goal that you're trying to achieve. You must know that it's Amala Prem Seva. And then that Prem Tattva itself, which describes that very esoteric connection with service to Sri Radha and Krishna, that Amal Prem Seva. You should understand this verse. Whatever you order, it is my duty to fulfill, said Brajanath. Well, that's a very wonderful submissive mood that Brajanath is demonstrating. You are my Shiksha Guru. I will come tomorrow evening and take instruction from you on Dasamula. Just a few moments ago, Brajanath was thinking I should come more often. Now he's saying I'm going to come tomorrow. So you see, each step of the way, his enthusiasm is increasing. Brajanath then offered Dandavat pranams to Babaji Mahashai, who embraced him with great affection. This is important. We have this expression of association. It's swajatiya, the same mood. And then snigdha, which means with affection. That affectionate mood must be there from that person that you're accepting shiksha from. If there's no affection, nothing's going to reach the heart. There must be confidence in that affection. Absolute confidence that this person has my highest well-being at heart. If that person is envious and you're suspicious that actually he has some ulterior motive, that is not a healthy relationship, obviously, right? That has to be really clear. That sambandha, for that sambandha to develop. Brajanath then offered Dandavat pranams to Babaji Mahashai, who embraced him with great affection. My son, said Babaji, you have purified this Brahman lineage. It will give me great pleasure if you come tomorrow evening. So Babaji is congratulating Brajanath for purifying his own, Brajanath's Brahman lineage. Brajanath is a very Paka Brahman. Raghunath Das Babaji is also Brahman. But Brajanath was very much absorbed in that abhiman, that identity of being a Brahman. Raghunath Das is not absorbed in that identity of being a Brahman, even though he is materially a Brahman. Thus ends the 12th chapter of Jaiva Dharma. So how wonderful is Bhaktivinoda Thakur, allowing us to glorify his great servant, Narottam Das Thakur today, as well as conclude our 12th chapter of Jaiva Dharma. So on Monday, we can approach this 13th chapter, which is the beginning of the Dasamula, the Abhideya section. And this we can hear so many times. I've recently just gone through this, but we can again, I've gone through it a number of times. But every single time, as I've shared with you, that I personally go through it, I feel like I've never read it before. So if anyone else feels the same way, that's good. So it can do nothing except assist and strengthen our progress to refresh these truths, to make this platform very steady and very firm and strong. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur ki jai, Jaiva Dharma ki jai, Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki jai, Ananta Kota Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.